Hey, what's up, everyone? Welcome back to the Splash City Basketball Podcast. I am your host, Steve Hartman. It is Monday, March 9th, 2026, and we're officially in the madness. We've got tickets being punched, teams are dancing, other teams are fighting for their bubble lives, and everyone's just trying to get to that next game. It's survive and advance time of year. One quick announcement before I get into the topics for today. I've officially got the go ahead to host the podcast live during the opening weekend of March Madness. So watch for that announcement coming soon. It'll be in the West Metro at a local establishment, and really excited to do that. I hope you all can come out and talk in person. Let's talk about the games, the brackets, the teams, talk some hoops. So watch for that announcement. Before I dive into today's key segments on the Wolves and the Gophers, I want to recognize a couple of runs happening across the region. First of all, in Sioux Falls, South Dakota, I had Terry Vanderbeck on from Sanford Sports. I hope you have been following him, talking about Summit League tournament, NSIC tournament. But North Dakota State men win the Summit League championship last night. They beat UND 70-62 in a rivalry game, but NDSU kind of controlled things for most of the game there. They went on a big 8-0 run to end the first half, and then kind of had it between 6 and 12 most of the game in the second half there. Damari Wheeler-Thomas is fantastic, getting it done. He had 19 points. He was the most outstanding player of the tournament. Noah Federson hits a big three late to kind of seal it for NDSU. Grayson Ullman from Minnetonka, outstanding in that game. Also outstanding throughout the tournament. He had 41 in the opening round. He had 28 against St. Thomas in that upset win. Which St. Thomas, really heartbreaker for them, losing on a last second. They had the ball tied with 22 seconds to go. They had the ball and they turn it over. UND comes down and gets fouled and makes one of the two free throws, and they win the game by one. St. Thomas has a young roster, so they could be back, but transfer portal could come calling as well for some of their star players like Nolan Minasale and Janowski and some of those guys. So be interesting offseason for St. Thomas. On the women's side, the South Dakota State Jackrabbits, the juggernaut in the Summit League, not the number one team in the tournament, knocks off that team, NDSU. So the NDSU women fall to the Jackrabbits in that one, and SDSU back in March Madness, where they kind of have belonged for the last 10 to 15 years. So great job down in Sioux Falls. Good games, fun atmosphere. Other things about the big dance I wanted to talk about. We have 10 former Minnesota men's basketball players. So guys who grew up playing prep hoops in Minnesota, they are locked into the NCAA tournament. So you might want to start following some of them. Wisconsin's got 4 of them. So there's a handful right there. But one name to follow is Nasir Whitlock. He's a former De La Salle standout. He was a 2023 Minnesota Mr. Basketball winner. He leads the way for Lehigh University. They were the 2 seed in the Patriot League. A few nights ago, Nasir hit a miraculous half-court shot to win the game in the quarterfinals of the Patriot League tournament. And then he followed that up with 22 points in the semis to get them into the Patriot League championship, where they will face Boston University. Boston knocked off the top seed in the Patriot League, Navy, for a spot in their tournament. So Nasir Whitlock and Lehigh might be dancing here come Wednesday night. March 11th is that championship game. Other small college notes: Division II, Minnesota State Mankato women's gets the number 1 seed, and they're hosting the Central Regional. They got UMD out of Duluth as well in that, and Concordia St. Paul on the women's side also making the Division II tournament. On the men's side, St. Cloud State and Duluth are officially dancing. They're both in the men's Division II tournament. In Division III, a couple games already in the books. Concordia College and Bethel advance on the women's side. They're in the Sweet 16. Gustavus, the winner of the MIAC regular season and tournament title, is in the Sweet 16 on the men's side. So fun to follow them. Check them out. So big year for a lot of local programs, a lot of fun, exciting basketball in the region. Coming up in today's episode, segment 1, I'll be talking Timberwolves. Ugly loss to Orlando over the weekend. Kind of a typical Wolves loss. They win 5 in a row. Then they lose a really ugly game where they just don't play well. However, Houston also lost over the weekend. So Wolves remain in 3rd place in the Western Conference for now. After that, we'll talk Gopher basketball. So they wrap up the regular season. The women get through the Big Ten tournament. The men open the Big Ten tournament this week. Just talk about, thoughts on the programs, and what we can expect here in the future this week and beyond for both Gopher men and women basketball. Later this week, I'll have an episode talking about youth basketball. My son's team, sixth graders, just wrapped up their youth basketball season, and I think their seventh and eighth grade youth basketball state tournaments this weekend coming up. I just wanted to kind of shed some light on what goes into a youth basketball season, because I know as parents and athletes, you kind of just go with the flow. You show up at games and practices and that, but there's a lot of scheduling. There's a lot of different ways and philosophies to run a youth program. So I'll bring a couple people on from our local association and just talk about that, from board meetings to volunteering time to schedule and get tournaments and get practices. There's a lot of things they have to juggle. So one final thing, make sure you follow the podcast on Instagram, Blue Sky, and Facebook. You can subscribe and follow on YouTube, Spotify, Apple, wherever you get your podcasts. Also notice that if you have a smart device like an Alexa, you can listen to the podcast on your Alexa. So there's a fun new way to listen. Anyway, with that, let's get into the Wolves. All right, so the first topic today I want to talk about is the Timberwolves. They lose to the Orlando Magic by 27 on Saturday, and it was pretty ugly after the first quarter. A lot of things wrong. A lot of things just didn't go. I mean, first of all, they couldn't make a shot. I think Jaden, Dante, and Io were like a combined 1 for 21 or something like that. But I think that stems more from other issues with the Wolves in terms of how they're playing on offense. So I wanted to examine this. I went a little bit deeper in wins and losses, and I just looked at their starters, their 5 starters, their numbers when they win versus the numbers when they lose. As you might expect, Jaden McDaniels stays pretty steady. Of all the starters, his plus minus is the lowest difference between wins and losses. Rudy is second. Where the fluctuation happens the most is between Anthony Edwards and Julius Randle, and then Dante DiVincenzo is third. So when they win, their plus minus is over 10, and when they lose, it's in the minus 8s range. So that's a big swing. And what is it about those guys in particular? Well, they're the ball dominant players. They're the guys who are handling the ball. A lot of times they're the ones facilitating the offense. And again, just looking at Edwards and Randle, the numbers bear that out in terms of ball movement, player movement, and shot selection. And those are the big things with the Wolves that I noticed. Like when they're not making shots, and again, in Saturday's game against Orlando, like Jaden and Dante, they're not getting the shots in rhythm. They're not getting the shots out of the paint. A lot of times it's the grenades. It's 3 seconds left in the shot clock, and now you're asking Jaden and Dante to do something that maybe they're rushing or they're not comfortable with. And so when I looked at, the shot selection, shot quantity in wins versus losses, Edwards shoots almost 3 more shots in losses than he does in wins. Julius shoots more shots in losses than wins. Shooting percentage goes down. And when you look at Jaden's field goal percentage is 55% in wins, and it's 48% in losses. Rudy, 75% in wins, 62% in losses. Dante, 44% in wins, 37% in losses. Those are big swings over the course of a year. And I think it just speaks to shot selection, ball movement. Assists is another number I looked at. Anthony Edwards averages almost 4 assists a game in wins. He averages 3.3 in losses. Julius, he averages a whole assist more per game than he does in losses. Turnovers, opposite, right? More turnovers per game in losses. Edwards, more turnovers per game in losses. Kind of the standard, I guess, across the team. But I say all that because when I watch them and the ball moves and the ball hits the paint and it's out and it's swung, those are rhythm shots. Those are shots that Finch wants. And I think that's, to me, the biggest difference. Now, some of that is the defense, right? Orlando plays a very physical defense. They have great defenders across the board. Desmond Bane and Jalen Suggs, first of all, very good defensive players. Paolo is a big, strong guy that can make things difficult for Julius. Wendell Carter is a decent defender as well. And so you got that's a recipe, but they're going to see that in OKC and they're going to see that in Houston. Those are great defensive teams as well. So they need to find another way to move the ball against these more physical teams. I think it's, there sometimes it leads onto itself, right? Where you get some frustration. In that Orlando game specifically, there was a moment, I think it was second quarter, Ant makes an attack. He draws a defender and he dumps it to Rudy. Now, it was a little bit spicy on the pass, but Rudy, most centers in the league will catch that and dunk it. Rudy drops it, goes out of bounds. Ant's facial expression at that moment kind of led the way for a lot of other things. Like, he looked completely disgusted and frustrated by that. And I think that is a challenge for this team, because if you can't trust a guy to catch the ball when you feed it to him and you make the right play, Finch wants him to make the right play, and Rudy can't catch the ball unless it's absolutely perfect in the perfect spot for his hands. That can be frustrating, and it is an offensive limitation for this team. However, I'm talking other guys like Dante and Jaden. You know, when you look at field goals attempted in wins and losses, Jaden shoots the same amount. He shoots a higher percentage in wins. Dante, roughly the same amount of attempts. Same thing. So these are just quality of shots. Now, maybe it's a make or miss league, right? Some games you make them. When you make them, you win the game. And they do that more often than they lose. But I think it's deeper than that. I think it's ball movement. I think it's the types of shots they get matters more than it does. But I think the key thing is Edwards and Randall shoot less times when they win. And that to me is a pretty telling stat, right? They don't have to shoot the most shots to win the games. The Wolves are more effective when the ball is moving and multiple guys are getting shots. And I think that's been true for years. So it becomes a little bit frustrating that they can't find that, throughout the game. Like, you can have a struggling quarter, but for that second quarter to bleed all the way into the second half and just never regain your footing, to me, that is, again, a little bit worrisome and kind of just emblematic of this team throughout its history. Is like, when they're rolling, they're good, but they have a hard time getting out. And maybe that's the Mike Conley thing, right? Like, that's what everybody always said. He was the professional. He can get them into the shots. He gets the ball popping. As Finch says, the ball finds energy. And so when you don't have somebody to move it right away off the top and get them into something, get them into an action, then the ball gets sticky. And when the ball gets sticky, they don't play as well. So that's number one for me. I just, those are just, maybe they're obvious things, right? But I think it's something to remember as we watch the Wolves. And if Julius and Ant are trying to go one-on-one and doing a lot of ISO, and that's just not their formula for winning. And I think Jaden is incredibly efficient scoring the basketball. He scores almost a point and a half. He scores at 1.6 more points per game and wins. Edwards actually scores 5 points fewer in their wins than he does their losses. So when they lose, now it could be chicken or egg. Like, are they losing so he tries hero ball and tries to get them back in so he shoots more? Or is he shooting more and they dig themselves a hole and they struggle? Same thing with Julius. He actually averages only 0.7 points per game fewer in wins than he does losses. But everybody else, Rudy scores more in wins, Dante scores more in wins, and Jaden scores more in wins. So to me, if you're the Wolves and as you're watching the game, you have to see, like, is the ball popping? Is the ball moving? Are other guys involved early? And that's going to be a recipe for success. If it's sticky, if we get into a lull where the ball's just kind of in Rudy or Julius or Ant's hands, it's probably not going to be a great night offensively for them. So again, I just looked at the starters, could do the reserves, but I'm guessing it's similar. The Wolves are at their best when the ball moves and multiple guys are getting shots and in rhythm and, taking the shots that they're comfortable taking. So that's number one. The other thing I noticed on Saturday that kind of bugged me, there was a moment, I think it was the second quarter, where the Wolves, again, had bad possessions, jacked up early, one pass and shot went up and they didn't make it. And Orlando was getting out in transition. And Edwards basically had 2 take fouls, just really like no effort to get back and hustle to protect the basket. It was just like, I'm just going to foul this guy. I don't want to run. And I feel like that kind of changed the energy and the momentum of the game a little bit, because if that's your effort level on that given day, it's just not going to be a great day for you against, not a great team. Like Orlando's the 8th seed in the East, so they're playing team. And I know they've had a ton of injuries, and they had higher expectations this year. Uh, but I just think that set a bad tone for the rest of the game, and it kind of spiraled from there. That was still the Wolves still had a lead at that time. And again, like you'd hope you'd go into locker room and kind of regroup, and they just never did. And so, as in the case a lot of times, I was watching a video about Kobe Bryant the other day in the Olympics, and I think it was 2008. So the U.S. Olympic team had come off a third place finish, bronze finish at the '04 Olympic Games, and it was kind of like, all right, we need to get back to American basketball and dominate in the Olympics. And it was the first game of the tournament, so pre-medal round or anything like that. And they were playing Spain, and Kobe said, "I'm going to pop Paul Gasol. I know what they're going to run the first play. I'm going to run right through his chest." And LeBron and D Wade and all these guys were like, "Yeah, okay, whatever." Like that's his teammate, man. Like that's his brother. And Kobe literally ran right through him and put him on the floor, his own teammate on the Lakers. And everybody said, "Whoa," he set the tone for how this was going to be. Kobe said, "I don't care that we're teammates. This is not the Lakers. This is USA versus Spain. And I'm the leader." And that completely changed that Olympic team and their mindset. And I think it also changed Spain's, because Pau even admitted, like, "Oh, wow, like he's not messing around. Like these guys are coming and they're going to bring it." And that's what the leaders need to do. And so I bring that up only in this case of Edwards, where it's okay to have a bad game. It's okay to miss shots. It's okay to, maybe get in foul trouble. But I think when you are the leader of the team and you take some plays off and you just don't bring the energy, that is going to trickle down through the team. So just again, my observations from Saturday. Now, Houston lost. The Wolves still are in third place in the West, which I think is a good spot for them. They're probably not catching the Spurs for second at this point. If they can keep that third place in the Western Conference, that's a good spot to be. Hopefully you can win a round one. You get San Antonio in round two, possibly meeting OKC again in the Western Conference Finals. But they got a stretch here. They got 4 straight on the road. They go to the Lakers, Clippers, Warriors, Thunder. That's a tough stretch. 2-2, awesome. If you go 2-2, I think in that stretch you're feeling good. Then you come home and you get the Suns, Jazz, Blazers at home. Now we can't have any more of these slip-ups against these bad teams. Sweep that, and you're 5-2 in those 7, and you're sitting really good. That gets you at 45-26. They have more games. They got 2 against the Pistons. They got the Rockets and Celtics in there coming up at the end of March. But this next 4-game road trip, followed by 3 winnable at home, is really important for the Timberwolves. So we'll see how they handle business coming up. Again, it's always funny because you win 5 in a row and you lose 1, and you're like dwelling on the 1. They played well against the Raptors. They beat the Grizzlies. They beat the Nuggets. So it's the NBA season. It's 82 games. Shorten it, make these more impactful. But for now, it's 82 games. But like to see them rebound Tuesday against the Lakers. That was an ugly loss against the Magic. You get a couple days off. Let's get things right. Let's get our head right. Go out to LA, beat the Lakers, and all will be right in Timberwolves Nation. All right, for the final segment of today's show, I wanted to talk about Gopher men's and women's basketball. We'll start with the women. Don Plitzerwhite had a great season. I know they got knocked out of the Big Ten tournament by Ohio State in the quarterfinals. Didn't play particularly well that game, but they still finished 8th in the country in Bart Torvik, and they finished 9th in the net rankings. This is, I don't think people quite get, like, they're ahead of Iowa in the net. They're ahead of Louisville, Oklahoma, Maryland, Ohio State in the net. So this team, if the committee seeds them the way they normally would based on those metrics, based on win-loss, they're probably looking at a 3 seed in the NCAA tournament. You could argue they might drop to a 4 because they're 5-7 in quad 1 and 2-1 in quad 2, so they're 7-8 in combined first 2 quadrants, which isn't as good as some of the other teams. You look around them, Duke's ahead of them. They're 14-8 in those 2 quadrants. The Hawkeyes are 16-6 in those 2 quadrants. Louisville is 14-7. So everyone else has a winning record in those 2 quadrants. So I could see Minnesota dropping to maybe a 4 seed just based on that. But if you went by the net ranking and the Torvik ranking, they would be a top 3 seed in the NCAA tournament, hoping to maybe get some home games because the way they do it, they usually break out into pods. It'd be great if the Gophers could get some home games here at the barn as they enter NCAA tournament play. A couple other things regarding them. Defensively, they were one of the best teams in the country, certainly one of the best teams in the Big Ten. The biggest thing, during the course of the season, they were number 2 in the country in turnover rate. So they didn't turn the ball over. And against Ohio State, who had quicker guards, and they got after them and they got up into their body, they forced the Gophers to try to beat them 1-on-1. They really struggled with that. So we'll see who they match up with in the tournament, because I think that could be a big indicator on their success getting out of the first weekend and getting into the Sweet 16. But even in that game, they did not play well. 20 turnovers. They actually only lost by 4 because their defense is that good. It kept them in the game. They rebounded the basketball very well. I just think, again, I've said this going way back, and it's on the men's and women's side. You put a coach in, no matter what level they've been at, and Plitza White was at South Dakota State, which, as I talked about earlier, tremendous success, tremendous program, getting in the NCAA tournament, getting wins in the tournament. But you get someone who's built programs, who's recruited the kids for their system, and who knows what it takes to win year after year after year, you're going to find success. Basketball is not a complicated game. It's doing a lot of simple things over and over and over really well. And the Gophers just give themselves a chance to win every night just based on their defense alone. And then you add in that, they got some great, Gruchalski can really fill it up from outside. Great shooter. Mara Braun started to come on a little bit better lately. She's struggled with some injuries over her career, and it's great to see them have some success in her final season. Sophie Hart down low is really solid, and you got Amaya Battle and Tori McKinney. Like they just have a really nice, complete, probably 6-7, middle school terms, top 7 players that they can go to. And so really exciting season for the Gophers. Hopefully we get to some home games here at the barn, and we'll keep watching them progress. Selection show coming up this Sunday along with the men's. On the men's side, I don't know what else to say. I feel like I've talked about Niko and his system, but literally playing the last month of the year with 6 guys and winning games in the big. I don't care if it's Northwestern. They have an all Big Ten player in Martinelli, and the Gophers still got it done the other night. They hold on for a 1-point win. They had a 14-point lead, almost blew it, but they hang on. There's some statistic out there, and I apologize, I can't find it, but I think there was something about Niko Medved's teams have never finished lower in KenPom than they started the season. So the Gophers started the season on the men's side at 73, and they're currently at 72. So that streak should live on, assuming they can get out of the Rutgers game on Wednesday in the Big Ten tournament and with a win. You lose that, you might drop. But in Torvik, the Gophers are actually ranked number 56. So they're 15-16. There's been, there's a measure that these metric systems can do for luck, right? If all things were equal, any other team, how often would they win? And the Gophers, versus the Gophers. And the Gophers actually have had, by that metric, really bad luck. The Gophers rank 311th in that luck metric, according to KenPom. So very unlucky season. for them based on that. They are 85th in the country in offensive rating, 69th in defensive rating. Niko was talking post game the other night about this 3 iterations of his team, right? So beginning of the year, you got Chauncey Willis and Robert Viola as your point guard and center. You got Jalen Crocker-Johnson. Grayson Groves, a bench player coming off at the 4 or 5 position. Langston Reynolds is your kind of power guard that'll come off the bench and be your change of pace guard. So then you lose Viola and Willis. Now you got a different iteration. You got a shorter bench. You got to play Shinholster more. You got to play Grove more. And then you lose Jalen Crocker-Johnson, who had been, probably your best player, maybe behind Cade Tyson, but 1A and 1B throughout much of the season. And you lose him. So now you're playing strictly a 2-3 zone, and you're making it work with one big and a couple of 6'7" wing players who aren't exactly the most physical presence on the court. And then you got Shinholster as your only bench player, a true freshman. And the fact that you can go 15-16, you can go 8-12 in the Big Ten, you're finishing 11th out of an 18-team league. When you even preseason with your full roster, you were picked like 15th or 16th in the conference. To me, that's having the right guys, recruiting the right kids, and the mental toughness. It's getting guys to buy into what you do. A lot of teams shut it down. I mean, let's be honest. There's a lot of college kids. You're 21, 22 years old, 20 years old. Things don't go your way. Woe is me sets in, and you mail it in, and you finish out the Big Ten season, and you lose 7 or 8 in a row. I don't want to call anybody out, but look at Maryland. Maryland had higher aspirations this year than Minnesota. They finished 11-20, and they are 4-16 in the Big Ten. So I'm not saying Buzz Williams isn't a good coach, because historically he's proven he's a pretty good coach, but I just think there is something to the culture and the program, and we're not quitting. We're not giving in. We're going to keep battling, and we're going to find a way. I think there's a lot that could be said for Niko and that team and the players. Like, that is not easy to ask Bobby Durkin to be playing the bottom of a 2-3 zone all, for the last 6 weeks or whatever it's been. And then also to start shooting. And he did. Cade Tyson, one of the leading scorers in the Big Ten, able to play a zone. He had to rebound more. Langston Reynolds, Asama. I said at the beginning of the year, I loved their physicality and defensiveness. And they prove that. Like, those two are the better defensive guards in the Big Ten. Reynolds figured out a way. Like, teams would scheme it. We're going to put our center on him. We're not going to guard him on the 3-point line. Found a way to counteract that. And so just a really fun season. You beat Michigan State. You beat UCLA, Iowa, Indiana. Like, they had some really fun wins. And so I don't know. I'm a Gopher Rube. I've been a season ticket holder, so there's always a little bias, but I truly believe that this is a program they're ready to unleash it. I think if you have Willis and Viola and Jalen Crocker-Johnson healthy for most of the year, they're sniffing a tournament bid, honestly, because if you could squeak 2 more wins and you're 500 in the Big Ten, a lot of times that's a tournament team. Maybe you don't lose a couple of those non-conference games to Santa Clara and Stanford and San Francisco if you have a healthy team. And so now all of a sudden you're looking at a team that's maybe they're 19-12 and they go 500 in the Big Ten, and that's a bubble team. That's Ohio State right now. So I just kudos to that program and those players, that the coaching staff. I think it's been extremely fun to watch. And I hope they get the Rutgers game. If they do, they get UCLA, who they've already beaten. And if they win that, they get Michigan State, who they've already beaten. So fun stuff. Both men's and women's programs on the rise. A lot of excitement in Dinkytown. I think it's only good for the basketball community when those two programs, when the University of Minnesota is competitive. And they certainly are this year. And it looks like they will be for years to come. All right, that's my show today. I appreciate you listening. Again, give me a follow, give Splash City Basketball Podcast a subscribe, follow, whatever, all the things. Really excited for the rest of the week. Obviously, it's March, so I'm always excited in March. But later this week, we'll talk youth basketball associations, and little teaser, Might have a head coach of an NCAA men's basketball tournament team on the podcast coming up very soon. So stick around for that. We'll do a selection show on Sunday night. We'll probably do like a bracket breakdown. Got my buddy Eric coming on. Eric and I used to literally would fill them out manually as they came on the TV screen. We would write them down on paper and fill out our bracket that way. So excited to do that with a buddy of mine who we've been friends for probably 35 years now at this point, which is crazy to say. But really excited. And again, I think I've teased this out a couple times. It does sound like I will be doing a podcast live on site March Madness, either Thursday or Friday. Details to come, but that is happening. So plan on meeting me in person one of those 2 days. I'm assuming you're taking the day off those days because it's March. What else is there to do? It's college basketball. It's the madness. Let it begin. I'm here for it. More college tournament champions to be crowned this week and more tickets to be punched to the big dance. Thanks for listening. This has been the Splash City Basketball Podcast.
Back in that bag.